They look functional. They laugh at the right moments. They meet deadlines. They answer messages. They show up. And yet inside, there is a voice that never stops speaking. A voice that says, "You're behind. You're disappointing everyone. If they really knew you, they'd leave." This is the quiet psychology of people who secretly hate themselves. Not in a dramatic, obvious way. Not in a way that always looks like self-destruction. Often it looks like competence, responsibility, humour, kindness. Because self-hatred rarely announces itself. It disguises itself as personality. In this video, we're exploring the inner architecture of hidden self-rejection, why it forms, why it persists, and why the people who suffer from it are often the last to admit it exists. This is not about weakness. This is about survival patterns that went too far. Let's begin. The invisible split people who secretly hate themselves often live with a psychological split. There is the outer self, the one the world sees, and there is the inner judge, the one that never leaves. From the outside, they seem fine, sometimes impressive, but internally, they are in constant negotiation with a voice that monitors every move. After a conversation, they replay it. After a mistake, they magnify it. After praise, they distrust it. Compliments feel suspicious. Criticism feels confirming. The inner judge is not loud in the way anger is loud. It's clinical, precise, relentless. It doesn't scream, "You're terrible." It whispers, "You should have known better." And whispers are harder to escape. Psychologists describe this as internalized criticism, a voice built from years of absorbed expectations, disappointments, and emotional climates that taught a person one message over and over: love is conditional. When affection is tied to performance, when mistakes are met with withdrawal, when approval feels fragile, the child doesn't blame the system. The child blames themselves, and that blame becomes architecture. By adulthood, the original voices may be gone, but the echo remains upgraded, automated, self-sustaining. Self-hatred is rarely born from a single event. It's assembled slowly from moments that taught a person, "I am acceptable only when I disappear into what others need." The perfectionism trap. Many people who secretly dislike themselves become high-functioning, not because they feel capable, but because failure feels catastrophic. Perfectionism is not about excellence, it's about fear. Every task becomes a referendum on worth. Every mistake feels like exposure. When they succeed, relief lasts minutes. When they fail, shame lasts weeks. This creates a treadmill with no finish line. They are chasing a version of themselves that finally earns peace. A future self that is disciplined enough, productive enough, impressive enough to deserve rest. But that version never arrives. Because self-hatred doesn't negotiate. It moves the goalpost. You finish one milestone, it raises the bar. You improve, it rewrites the standard. And slowly, achievement stops feeling rewarding. It becomes maintenance. You're not striving to grow. You're striving to prevent collapse. This is why many secretly self-critical people look driven. They are not chasing ambition. They are outrunning shame. The tragedy is that the world often rewards them for it. They become the reliable one, the competent one, the one who has it together. No one suspects the engine underneath is fear. The humour mask. Another common adaptation is humour. People who hate themselves often become experts at making others comfortable. They are funny, self-deprecating, quick to turn their pain into punchlines. It's disarming, it's charming, and it creates distance. If you joke about your flaws first, no one can weaponize them. If you laugh at yourself, rejection feels pre-managed. But humour can become armour. It keeps conversations shallow. It protects the vulnerable centre. Because if the real pain is seen, not the comedic version, not the edited version, there is a fear it will confirm the worst belief: I am too much or not enough. So they entertain instead of reveal. They perform instead of connect. And loneliness grows in a crowded room. The world thinks they're open. They feel invisible. The addiction to being useful. One of the quietest forms of self-hatred is compulsive usefulness. These are the people who say yes when they mean no, who overextend, who fix everyone's problems. They are generous, but exhausted. Their worth is tied to function. If they are helpful, they are safe. If they are needed, they are valued. If they rest, guilt appears. This pattern often begins in childhood environments where love felt earned through service, a parent who needed emotional caretaking, a household where conflict was avoided by pleasing, a dynamic where the child became the stabilizer. The message wasn't spoken, but it was clear. Your needs complicate things. Your usefulness redeems you. As adults, they become indispensable and internally empty, because usefulness is not the same as being loved, but it's predictable. And predictability feels safer than vulnerability. They fear that if they stop performing, the relationship will reveal its truth. So they keep giving, not out of pure generosity, but out of terror of becoming replaceable. The private exhaustion. From the outside, these individuals look functional. Inside, they are tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. Self-hatred is metabolically expensive. It turns ordinary decisions into moral trials. It turns rest into guilt. It turns silence into accusation. They carry an invisible weight, the pressure to be acceptable at all times. And because this pressure is internal, there is no clear enemy, no villain to confront, only themselves. This is why many secretly self-critical people don't describe themselves as struggling. They say, "I'm just stressed. I'm hard on myself. I should be better by now." They normalize the violence of their inner dialogue. They mistake endurance for strength. But constant self-rejection is not discipline, it's erosion. And erosion is quiet. Until one day, motivation disappears. Joy feels distant. Connection feels unsafe. And they wonder why. The truth is, no one thrives while being hunted by their own mind. This hidden war doesn't begin with adulthood. It has roots, deep ones. Self-hatred is not natural. No child enters the world despising themselves. No infant looks in the mirror and thinks, "I am wrong." That voice is learned, and what makes it tragic is this: it is learned as protection. The mind does not adopt cruelty for entertainment. It adopts cruelty because, at some point, cruelty felt safer than truth. To understand people who secretly hate themselves, we have to go backward, to the environments that taught them that self-rejection was survival, the conditional love. Blueprint children are emotional scientists. They run experiments constantly. What makes them smile? What makes them withdraw? What keeps me safe? When love feels consistent, the child concludes, "I am acceptable as I am." But when love feels conditional, tied to behavior, success, obedience, emotional silence, the conclusion shifts. "I am acceptable only when I perform correctly." This is the blueprint. It doesn't require overt abuse. It doesn't require cruelty in the cinematic sense. It can emerge in high-achieving households, religious households, chaotic households, emotionally distant households, any environment where affection feels fragile. The child adapts by becoming hyper-attuned. They study tone changes, facial expressions, micro-disappointments. They become excellent readers of other people and strangers to themselves, because self-expression becomes risky. If anger leads to rejection, suppress anger. If sadness annoys people, suppress sadness. If success earns praise, chase success. The child learns, my authentic self threatens connection. My edited self preserves it, and that edit becomes identity. By adulthood, the person no longer remembers when the editing started. They only feel the exhaustion of maintaining it. The internalized parent. Every child builds an internal model of their caregivers. This is attachment architecture. The way a parent speaks becomes the way the adult speaks to themselves. If the caregiver is patient, the inner voice becomes patient. If the caregiver is critical, the inner voice becomes prosecutorial. People who secretly hate themselves often carry an internalized authority figure that never retires. A voice that says, "You should already know this. Other people can handle it. Why can't you? Don't embarrass yourself." What's haunting is that this voice often feels rational. It masquerades as realism, responsibility, standards, but its emotional tone reveals its origin. Healthy guidance says, "You made a mistake, adjust and continue." Internalized shame says, "You made a mistake. This proves something about you." That leap from behavior to identity is the birthplace of self-hatred. The person is no longer evaluating actions. They are evaluating existence. The shame core guilt says, "I did something bad." Shame says, "I am something bad." This distinction changes everything. Many self-hating individuals carry what psychologists call a shame core, a deep pre-verbal belief that they are fundamentally defective, not flawed in a human way, defective in an existential way. And shame is adhesive. It attaches to neutral events and rewrites them as evidence. A forgotten text becomes, "You ruin relationships." A job rejection becomes, "You are inadequate." A social misstep becomes, "You don't belong anywhere." Shame is not loud, it is persuasive. It builds a courtroom inside the mind where every memory becomes testimony against the self. What's devastating is that shame often grows in environments where emotions were dismissed, not attacked, dismissed. "Stop being dramatic. You're too sensitive." That's not a big deal. The child doesn't stop feeling. They stop trusting their feelings. And when your internal signals are invalidated long enough, you begin to distrust the instrument measuring reality, yourself. That distrust becomes chronic self-suspicion, and chronic self-suspicion is fertile soil for self-hatred. The attachment wound. Humans are wired with a terrifying equation: connection equals survival. For a child, losing emotional connection feels like annihilation. So when something threatens attachment, the psyche makes a brutal calculation: blame the caregiver, or blame myself. Blaming the caregiver risks losing them. Blaming yourself preserves the bond. So the child chooses self-blame every time. Because a flawed self is safer than an unsafe world. This is the origin of many adult self-hating patterns. They are loyalty strategies that never expired. The mind learned, if I criticize myself first, I stay connected. If I preempt rejection, I control it. If I lower my worth, I lower the risk of abandonment. What once protected attachment now corrodes identity. But the brain doesn't update automatically. It runs old code in a new environment, and the adult wonders why safety feels foreign. Why the mind protects the inner critic. Here is the paradox. People who hate themselves often defend the voice that hurts them. If you challenge their inner critic, they feel exposed. Because the critic is not just pain, it is structure. It promises control. The inner critic says, if I punish you enough, you won't fail. If I shame you early, the world can't shame you later. If I keep you small, you won't risk humiliation. It is a security system built from fear. And like all security systems, it resists removal. The person unconsciously believes, without this voice, I will fall apart. So they cling to it, not because they enjoy suffering, but because suffering feels predictable, and predictability feels safer than freedom. This is why healing self-hatred feels terrifying. It's not just learning self-compassion, it's dismantling the guard tower that once kept you alive, even if that tower now shoots inward. The adult consequences. By the time these patterns reach adulthood, they look like personality traits. Overthinking, imposter syndrome, chronic guilt, fear of being seen, inability to rest, distrust of praise, attraction to emotionally unavailable partners, tolerance of disrespect, all orbit the same gravitational center. I am not worthy without constant proof. So life becomes a performance review that never ends. and the performer never feels promoted, only temporarily spared. This is the exhaustion people can't name. They think they're failing at life, but they're fighting a war that started before they had language. Healing self-hatred is not a motivational speech. It is not waking up one morning and deciding to love yourself. It is not repeating affirmations until the voice disappears. It is not pretending the pain was exaggerated. Healing begins in a quieter place. It begins when you stop believing every thought that introduces itself as truth, because the most dangerous feature of self-hatred is not its cruelty, it's its credibility. The voice sounds informed, experienced, protective. It speaks in the tone of authority. So the first step is not fighting it. Fighting strengthens it. The first step is learning to recognize it as a voice, not a verdict. Separating the voice from the self. People who secretly hate themselves often experience their inner critic as identity, not a part of them. But psychologically, the critic is a role, a strategy, a leftover survival mechanism. And survival mechanisms are not personality. They are adaptations. When you begin to notice the critic as a pattern instead of a fact, something subtle changes. The sentence, "I am a failure," becomes "I am having the thought that I am a failure." That small distance is revolutionary because it introduces choice. The goal is not to silence the critic immediately. Silencing is another form of violence. The goal is to observe it without obeying it. To hear, "You're embarrassing yourself," and respond internally. That's the old alarm system talking, not with anger, not with mockery, with recognition. Self-hatred thrives in fusion. It weakens in awareness. You don't destroy the voice, you outgrow its authority. The skill of self-compassion. Self-compassion is often misunderstood as indulgence. People fear it will make them lazy, careless, weak. But research shows the opposite. Self-compassion increases accountability because it removes the paralysis of shame. When mistakes don't threaten your identity, you can actually learn from them. Compassion says, "You messed up. Let's understand why." Shame says, "You messed up. Hide." One moves you forward, the other freezes you in place. For someone who has lived with chronic self-criticism, compassion feels unnatural, suspicious, even embarrassing. That's normal. You are rewiring a system that equated kindness with danger. Start small, not with declarations of love, with neutrality. Instead of "I'm useless," try "I'm struggling." Neutral language is a bridge. It reduces emotional violence without demanding fake positivity. Healing is not jumping from hatred to love. It's moving from hostility to fairness. Relearning rest. One of the hardest skills for self-hating people is rest. Because rest feels like exposure. When productivity stops, the critic gets louder. This is not a coincidence. Many people used achievement as anesthesia. When you're busy, you don't have to feel. When you are still, the backlog arrives. So the mind equates rest with danger. Healing requires retraining the nervous system to experience rest as safe. Not earned, not justified, safe. This is why burnout is common among people who secretly dislike themselves. They don't stop when tired, they stop when broken. Learning to pause before collapse is an act of rebellion against a lifetime of conditional worth. Rest is not a reward, it is maintenance for being human. Allowing imperfect visibility, self-hatred survives in secrecy. It tells you, if people see the real you, they will leave. So you curate, you edit reactions, you soften opinions, you hide needs. Healing requires controlled visibility, not confession to everyone, not emotional exposure without boundaries, but choosing safe people and allowing small moments of authenticity. Saying, "I'm not okay today. I don't understand this. I need help," and surviving the moment after. Each time authenticity does not lead to abandonment, the brain updates, slowly, painfully, but it updates. You are teaching your nervous system that connection does not require disguise, and that lesson rewrites identity. Grieving the lost years. There is a quiet grief in recovery. Many people feel anger toward their past, not just at caregivers, at time. They mourn the version of themselves that might have existed without the war, the confidence they never felt, the ease they never knew, the childhood that trained them to shrink. This grief is not regression, it is integration. You are acknowledging reality without drowning in it. Healing does not erase the past, it makes space for it. And paradoxically, grieving what you didn't receive creates room to receive it now, from others, from yourself. Redefining identity. The final shift is not about eliminating the critic, it's about changing your relationship to yourself. People who recover from hidden self-hatred don't become endlessly confident. They become internally allied. They stop treating themselves as an adversary. They become someone they can return to after failure, someone they can trust with pain, someone who does not weaponize vulnerability. This is what real self-esteem looks like. Not thinking you're amazing, knowing you won't abandon yourself when you're not. And that is stability. That is freedom. The quiet victory. There is no dramatic finish line to this work. No day where the voice disappears forever. But there is a day when it stops running the government of your mind. It becomes an advisor you don't always follow. And in that space, something unfamiliar appears. Relief. Not because life is perfect, but because the war has cooled. You wake up, and the first thought is not an accusation. You make a mistake, and the day continues. You rest, and the world doesn't collapse. These moments seem small. They are seismic. They mean you are no longer living under internal occupation. You are becoming a place you can inhabit safely. If any part of this felt uncomfortably familiar, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means you adapted brilliantly to conditions that ask too much of you. And adaptations can be updated, slowly, patiently, without violence. You are not required to love yourself immediately. You are only asked to stop treating yourself as disposable. That is where healing starts. And if this series made you feel seen, even for a moment, remember, the voice that hates you learned its language, and anything learned can be relearned. Take care of yourself. You are not the enemy you were taught to fight.